Take a moment and look at your morning. You are sitting at your breakfast table, the smell of crisping bacon fat filling the room. Beside your plate is a glass of orange juice, its gold hue promising a natural burst of health. You feel refreshed. Your mouth still has that sharp, minty tingle from the toothpaste foam that tells your brain you are clean. Your underarms are dry, your breath is neutral, and you feel ready to step into society without the fear that your own body will betray you. You think this routine is the natural result of human progress, common sense, or perhaps an ancient tradition handed down through the centuries. You believe your preference for a hearty breakfast or your medical need for mouthwash is an expression of your own agency. You are wrong. You are living inside a script, written by a handful of men in smoke-filled boardrooms a century ago. Your traditional American breakfast is a manufactured relic of the 1920s. Your sense of hygiene is a psychological habit, loop designed to trigger a chemical craving for a sensation that does almost nothing to actually clean you. Your very shame regarding the natural functions of your skin was a profit-driven invention. Why do you eat bacon in the morning? Why does your toothpaste tingle? Why are you afraid of your own breath? None of it was your idea. And by the end of this, you won't be able to unsee it. We will meet the three architects of your reality: Edward Bernays, Albert Lasker, and Claude Hopkins. You think these are your taste, your hygiene, your health, your morning? Each was planted by an ad man to sell you something, and it worked so well you forgot it was ever a choice. Let's start with the plate in front of you. If you were an American in 1910, your breakfast was likely just a roll, oatmeal, or a cup of coffee. But the Beech-Nut Packing Company had a surplus of bacon and a problem with declining sales. They hired Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. Bernays didn't run ads saying, "Buy our bacon." Instead, he used his uncle's theories on the unconscious to engineer consent. He went to his agency's physician and asked if a heavy breakfast was better for health than a light one. He then had that doctor write to 5,000 other physicians, and 4,500 of them agreed that a substantial breakfast was sounder from the standpoint of health. Headlines across the country screamed. 4,500 physicians urged bigger breakfast. Sales soared, and to this day, 70% of bacon in the United States is consumed at breakfast because you were told it was a medical necessity. 4,500 doctors, and not one of them stopped to ask who was paying for the postage. Even the fruit bowl on your table is a field of tactical positioning. When he wasn't engineering your eggs, Bernays was working for the United Fruit Company to transform the banana into an American staple. He didn't just sell fruit. He linked it to good health and American interests, strategically placing bananas in the hands of celebrities and in hotel lobbies to ensure they were always conspicuous. He even created a front group, the Middle America Information Bureau, to feed journalists and academics positive spin about the countries where the bananas were grown. When a man builds a fake institute just to make a banana look patriotic, you start to understand the scale of the ambition. Beside that bacon and those bananas is your orange juice. In 1908, California growers were producing so many oranges, they were literally cutting down their trees to limit the supply. Albert Lasker, the father of modern advertising, told them to stop. He rebranded them as Sunkissed and gave America a new command: drink an orange. He knew you couldn't eat 4 oranges at once, but you could easily drink them in a single glass. He bundled cheap juicers with orange wrappers to build the habit. Then came the acidosis scare. Sunkissed ads claimed a lack of vitality was due to acidosis, a condition that was later debunked, but the damage was done. Orange consumption shot up from about half an orange to 2.5 per serving, and you were left drinking about as much sugar as a can of soda, convinced it was a health miracle. The genius wasn't growing more oranges. It was convincing you to swallow 4 of them before you were fully awake, and to thank them for it. If you can't convince the adults, you capture the children. Lasker took this philosophy into the classroom, introducing classes into public schools to explain puberty and menstruation to young girls, solely to promote Kotex products. He realized that by framing commercial interests as educational progress, he could secure a lifelong consumer base before they even left the 8th grade. There's a special kind of confidence in a man who looks at a middle school health class and sees a sales funnel. Now, let's go to the bathroom sink. Claude Hopkins, a man who lived by the rule that you must make a product into a daily habit, was hired to sell Pepsodent. At a time when almost no one in America brushed their teeth, Hopkins ignored the science of plaque and focused on the film. You can feel on your teeth with your tongue. The film is natural and harmless, but Hopkins turned it into a cue. His real genius, however, was the tingle. By adding citric acid and mint oil, he created a cooling sensation that served no cleaning purpose, but provided a sense of reward. Consumers began to crave that tingle. If they didn't feel it, they felt unclean. Hopkins didn't give you hygiene. He gave you a craving. So the next time your mouth tingles and you feel clean, remember, you are not feeling clean. You're feeling a chemical that a copywriter installed in 1916, on schedule, twice a day. When facts were too dull, they simply rewrote history. Hopkins sold palm olive soap by claiming it was Cleopatra's beauty secret, linking a modern industrial detergent to the ancient rituals of Egyptian royalty. He understood that a consumer doesn't buy a bar of soap. They buy the hope of inheriting the allure of a queen. Cleopatra died in 30 BC. Palm olive was invented in 1898. The math did not trouble anyone in the marketing department. This science of the irrelevant truth didn't stop at your bathroom mirror. It extended to your refrigerator. When hired to sell Schlitz beer, Hopkins didn't talk about the taste. He talked about the purity of the process. He told the public that the bottles were washed with live steam, a standard industry practice that every brewery used. But because he was the first to say it, the public believed Schlitz was uniquely clean, and sales skyrocketed from 5th place to a tie for 1st. Every brewery steamed their bottles. Hopkins just had the nerve to say it out loud first, and the country handed him the trophy for it. To these men, your breakfast wasn't just a meal. It was a ballistic performance. Hopkins applied the same logic to Quaker puffed rice and puffed wheat, creating the legendary slogan, "Food shot from guns," to turn a simple manufacturing process into a sensory spectacle. By describing the grain being puffed to 8 times normal size, he turned a cheap cereal into a marvel of modern engineering. It was stale grain heated under pressure. He sold it as artillery. While you were craving that toothpaste tingle, the Lambert family was wondering what to do with a surgical antiseptic called Listerine. It had been used to treat gonorrhea and scrub floors, but it wasn't a runaway success. Then, they dug up an obscure Latin term for bad breath, halitosis. They framed it as an embarrassing medical condition that was keeping the sad, unmarried Edna from finding a husband. Before these ads, bad breath was a personal imperfection. After them, it was a social catastrophe. In just 7 years, the company's revenues rose from $115,000 to more than $8 million. They didn't sell mouthwash. They sold the fear of being unpopular. They didn't cure a disease. They invented one, gave it a Latin name so it sounded serious, and then, conveniently, happened to be holding the only cure. This scare copy reached its zenith with James Webb Young and Odor. In 1912, Edna Murphy tried to sell her father's surgical antiperspirant to stop surgeons' hands from sweating. It was a disaster. Drugstores returned the bottles because nobody thought they needed them. Murphy hired Young, who published a 1919 ad in Ladies' Home Journal, titled Within the Curve of a Woman's Arm. It didn't talk about health. It told women their bodies would betray them with odors. They couldn't even detect themselves. Sales rose 112%. The original product was so acidic. It literally ate through clothing and caused chemical burns. Yet women kept applying it because they were more afraid of the smell of sweat than the sting of the acid. Read that last part again. The product was burning holes in their clothes, and the fear he manufactured was still stronger than the acid. The manipulation of the next generation wasn't limited to the classroom. It reached into the bathtub. Edward Bernays worked with Procter & Gamble to convince the public that ivory soap was medically superior. But his true masterstroke was the ivory soap sculpting contests. By enlisting millions of children to carve soap into art, he transformed a chore into a creative necessity, ensuring that children used more soap and developed a lifelong brand loyalty through the guise of a school competition. He turned soap into an art supply so that children would burn through it faster and call it fun. Every masterpiece washed a little more product down the drain. Edward Bernays even took this fear into the very water you drink. In the 1930s, he launched a campaign for Dixie cups, designed to convince you that regular drinking glasses were unsanitary. He utilized front groups to claim that reusable glasses were disease-carrying, ensuring that you would never look at a communal glass of water the same way again. A reusable glass had worked fine for a few thousand years. It took one PR campaign to make it feel like a biohazard. When he wasn't selling fear, he was selling the illusion of historical significance. In 1929, Bernays orchestrated Light's Golden Jubilee, a nationwide celebration of the 50th anniversary of the light bulb. It looked like a global tribute to Thomas Edison, but it was a meticulously planned publicity stunt that blurred the line between news and advertising, so effectively that the entire world stopped to celebrate a corporate anniversary. The whole planet held a party for a light bulb, and never once suspected it had been sent an invitation. But these men, Bernays, Lasker, and Hopkins, weren't just playing with your breakfast menu or your medicine cabinet. They were testing the limits of crowd psychology to see if they could control what they called the irrational masses. Bernays explicitly stated that the conscious and intelligent manipulation of our organized habits is a necessary element of democratic society. He called it the invisible government. He argued that universal literacy had not given the common man a mind, but a rubber stamp inked with advertising slogans so that all receive identical imprints when exposed to the same stimuli. When they weren't selling you bacon, They were using these same techniques to put cigarettes in the hands of a generation. Bernays branded cigarettes as torches of freedom to link a lethal habit to feminist liberation, paying debutantes to smoke in the 1929 Easter Parade. Albert Lasker doubled down for Lucky Strike, telling women to reach for a Lucky instead of a Sweet to stay slender. When women were reluctant to buy Lucky Strikes because the green package clashed with their clothing, Bernays didn't change the box. He changed the fashion of the entire country. He organized the Green Ball, a social gala where he convinced society women, fashion editors, and intellectuals that green was the modish color of the season. He engineered a green autumn, ensuring that the cigarette package in a woman's hand would always match the latest trend. They used these techniques to win an unpopular war and, in Bernays' case, even helped the United Fruit Company drum up a communist menace in Guatemala to facilitate a coup backed by the CIA in 1954. The same mind that designed your morning routine helped design the overthrow of a government. They didn't just sell products. They sold whole new ways of behaving that redefined the very texture of American life. So look down at your breakfast table one more time. The bacon, the juice, the minty residue on your tongue, the dry feeling under your arms, and the disposable cup in your hand. None of it is a tradition. None of it is a biological necessity. It is the result of 100 years of engineering consent. You think these are your taste, your hygiene, your health, your morning. Each was planted by an ad man to sell you something. And it worked so well you forgot it was ever a choice. Now that you know the tingle in your mouth was a manufactured reward, the juice in your glass was a solution to a citrus surplus, and your breakfast was a doctor-approved survey, does it taste different? Or has the habit loop already won?